I'm Sharon Goldsmith. As a sex educator, I hope the following program will inform viewers on vital sexual issues. I also invite viewer discretion and parental guidance.
Well, as a child, my parents, I've never seen them nude, and they never took their clothes off in front of me, and we always shut doors in our house, and I just never saw our body.
Human Sexuality, a frank look at the shared intimacies of men and women, covering the physical, psychological, and personal aspects of our lives, with host Sharon Goldsmith, certified sex educator and director of seminars on sexuality.
Most of us have questions about nudity. How much is too much? How much is okay? At what point does it become sexual? And what about nudity around children? How you feel about your body affects every other area of your life. Today we're going to begin to answer some of these difficult questions, and we're going to give you some suggestions on how you can feel more comfortable with your body. I'm with Nancy. Nancy is divorced and the mother of 2 children. Nancy, I know it took you some time to be comfortable with your sexuality, comfortable with your body. Many times these feelings about our body start really early in childhood. What was it like for you as a child?
Well, as a child, my parents, I've never seen them nude, and they never took their clothes off in front of me, and we always shut doors in our house, and I just never saw our body until...
Did you have sisters, brothers?
No, I was an only child.
You were the only child. You were aware as you were growing up that this was sort of a taboo area in your family?
Yes, we never discussed sex, and we just never showed our bodies. So I grew up not knowing too much about it and thinking that was the normal way.
When did you first see another person's body?
Probably when I got married at 18.
So your first experience was really with your husband?
Yes.
So how did this affect your marriage?
Well, my husband was pretty conservative. So with my background and his, probably sexually we weren't as open or aware or happy sexually as we would have been.
When you say he was conservative, what do you mean by that?
Well, when raising our children, he made sure that they always covered up and didn't want me to give them baths together. They were 2 years apart, and a boy and a girl. And
even as little ones, he didn't feel that it was appropriate for them to bathe together?
No, he didn't. So it was pretty much a household where we covered up all the time and never exposed ourselves in closed doors. And
so you and your husband would not be caught, so to speak, nude in front of the children, wouldn't walk around unclothed in any way, and the children weren't allowed really to see each other, even as little ones?
That's true.
How did this affect your sexuality with your husband?
Well, it took many years till we really got comfortable with each other's bodies. So after several years, it was okay, but we always turned the lights out and made love in the dark and under the covers, right?
Well, it's very common, I think, for people to do that.
Yes, I think so.
And putting the lights on, taking the covers off, really feeling comfortable with your body is a big step for many people.
And much more enjoyable.
Really? In many ways. How do you think this affected your kids? Have you had any feedback on that?
Well, I got divorced, and they were 6 and 8. And suddenly I got in touch with my body, and...
What made you suddenly get in touch with your body?
Dating again. After 10 years of marriage, and I was dating someone who was a member of a nudist camp, and he asked me to go.
Did you know he was a member of a nudist camp when you started dating him?
No, I didn't. And it took him 3 months to convince me to go with him. And I didn't realize at the time that I had any kind of sexual problem or hang-ups.
Well, I'm just curious. Wait a minute. When he told you that he was a member of a nudist camp, how did you react to that?
I was really shocked.
Not you.
I was really surprised that anyone would walk around naked in front of other people. And it gave me a lot to think about.
How often did he take part in this experience?
Usually on the weekends, on a Sunday, on a nice sunny day, just like one would go to the beach and have a picnic. he would do that.
So here you were, a young woman who had really covered up all her life, and everyone around her had covered up, and suddenly you were going to a nudist camp?
Yes,
Tell
that's
me
true.
about that.
Well, it took 3 months to convince me to go, and when I first thought about it, I thought it was sick, and decided that I wouldn't have any part of it. And after becoming acquainted with friends of his that were nudists, I decided that I wanted to try it and see what it was like.
So what happened when you went there?
I went and took a big purse and a bottle of wine.
Big purse? That you could hide behind you?
Right. And I sat on a blanket for about an hour.
You're allowed to take a bottle of wine with you?
Yeah. Yeah. I sat on a blanket for an hour, drank a whole bottle of wine, and then I was ready to get up.
With the purse in front of you?
And I got up with the purse, and I found that I was not different than anyone else, and that no one was perfect, and that there were fat people and skinny people and young people and old people, and there wasn't a perfect body amongst us. So,
well, do people just kind of walk around? Do they swim? Are there games or activities? I'm having a hard time picturing what goes on in a situation like that.
well, it is like a big park, and there's a swimming pool and a jacuzzi, and they have tennis, and they have activities there, and they give classes in massage, and people come with a picnic basket and play Scrabble or cards or backgammon.
So the purpose isn't really so much nudity as to do whatever it is you like to do in the nude.
Exactly, and it's a very freeing feeling, and it's after you get used to it, it's really quite comfortable, and it changed my life a lot.
In what way?
I felt much happier with my body, sexually, physically, emotionally. I was much more satisfied with myself, and I didn't like wearing clothes.
No, it became hard to put clothes on.
Difficult.
Restrictive. How about your teens? I assume your kids are in their teen years?
Yes.
At this point?
At this point, they don't think anything about seeing me nude at all. We don't walk around the house nude and flaunt it. But if I'm in my bedroom getting dressed and they walk in, it's fine. And they don't gawk at me because they're used to seeing me. And I think it's a very natural, healthy feeling that they have. And they are the same way. And they don't walk around nude outside, but we see each other nude.
In a natural setting, when you happen to be nude and someone walks in, that's okay.
Right.
Well, you've certainly come a long way.
Yes, and it's paid off a lot.
Well, it certainly seems to have worked well with you, Nancy. Thank you for sharing that with me. When we come back, we'll talk to a family therapist about the subject of nudity. I'm here with psychologist Dr. Jordan Paul, who's a marriage, family, and child counselor. Thank you for joining me today, Jordan.
It's a pleasure to be here.
There's some confusion, I think, among people as to the relationship of sex to nudity, and I wonder if you could clarify that for us.
I believe that has to do totally with the attitude of the people who are going through the experience. Nudity, in and of itself, does not have to be sexual. As a matter of fact, I think most people find it's much more sexual to have small amounts of clothing on than no clothing at all, leaving the imagination to really stimulate the individual.
What's the point of a nude encounter, then?
Well, the only point that I can see would be to help an individual to become comfortable with themselves being nude so that they can feel good about who they are as a person. They can feel that they're really okay, that their body's okay.
By comparing it to others and...
I think both by comparison and also by talking about one's feelings about one's body and in that setting.
And it just generally desensitizes you to the whole concept of a body and nudity, and
yes,
more comfortable.
Because we've all been raised with lots of myths about nudity and sexuality and how our bodies are supposed to be.
And most of us quite inhibited when it came to nudity. Is it appropriate, though, Jordan, for everyone to go to a nude encounter situation?
No, certainly not. I think for some people who are willing to go through this experience and maybe perhaps have talked about it beforehand so that they can go into the situation with some amount of feeling secure and feeling safe, going with someone who they trust, I think it can be a wonderful experience. I think on the other hand, for many people who just are feeling bad and are not ready to do it, to expect them to go into that experience and have a good time or a satisfying is just not going to happen.
It might be more dangerous.
It certainly might be further their bad feelings rather than help them get over them.
Well, I was just kind of curious if it took you know, a bottle of wine and a big on the one hand, that made me think, well, gee, you know, maybe this wasn't the right place for Nancy to be, yet it seemed to work out all right for her in the long run.
My experience with people like Nancy has been that this hang-up or fear, whatever you want to call it, about nudity is one of the easiest fears that people have to overcome. It's something we carry around our whole lives, many of us, how we're going to be, what's going to happen, are we going to be acceptable? And in a very short period of time, those fears for many people just go away and they can feel comfortable.
Mm. Nancy mentioned to me after the interview that she has kind of moved beyond going to the nude encounters, that it was a period in her life, something she needed to experience, and that now she rarely does. Is that typical, that this is a growth experience that's temporary?
Yes, I would say that that's very typical. Some people, of course, will stay with that and really enjoy those experiences and continue for a long time, and for some people, just when they get comfortable, they are finished with it and it just becomes a part of their natural life.
Jordan, a lot of people, parents, are concerned about at what point does nudity become sexual. I know as a parent that's always been a concern to me. And I certainly want to be as open with my children as possible. Can you give us some ideas about how to draw that fine line?
I think, again, Sharon, as I said before, it depends upon the attitude of the people involved. If there is a sexual attraction and frustration and some unresolved sexuality going on within the parent, then that parent being nude with their children could be a very negative experience for the child. If the parent is comfortable with their own sexuality, comfortable with the sexual relationship with their partner, and there's nothing going on in terms of seductiveness or a need to prove something, then it can be a wonderful experience and people can grow up very naturally feeling comfortable with their own body.
It sounds like from what Nancy said, one can change, a family can change. She changed, it seemed, with her kids.
If people couldn't change, contrary to what we may have been led to believe, if people couldn't change those things, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. Certainly we're capable of great changes, and that's why we go through these experiences and talk about them, and that's what therapy is all about also.
Isn't a certain amount of modesty all right, though, Jordan? I know, I'll be honest with you, I'm not real comfortable with the idea of being in a group of people and taking off my clothes, and yet I really feel that I'm comfortable with my sexuality.
Yes.
Isn't there... Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is modesty...
And I think that, you know, that is a very individual issue, as most things are. How could we possibly say that it's good or bad or right or wrong to feel a certain way? What works for you and what's comfortable for you is right for you. It may be more than someone else is willing to do or less than another person is willing to do. And we can't set standards to say there's a right and a wrong way to be. It depends upon what you're comfortable with.
So we should basically listen to ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
On so many levels when it comes to sexuality. If we could just listen to what's going on.
That's right. And we have a hard time doing that because we have standards that are set up that we've heard about or believe through literature or the culture or whatever, and we don't stack up to those standards, and then we feel bad about ourselves. And part of feeling comfortable is learning who we are and being comfortable with that, even though it may be different from what someone else is.
Doesn't that also maybe give us the jumping off place from which to change? First accepting, you know,
then
where
change.
we are.
Absolutely.
I want to ask you one question which I know isn't easy to answer quickly. Many times I think partners get into a situation where one partner wants a little more nudity than another, you know, perhaps they're at a party where everyone wants to get in a hot tub or something like that. How does, just quickly, how can we handle situations between partners where there are differences of opinion?
I think that with nudity and with everything else, the key when we come up against differences, and we always will, if not in sexuality or nudity and in everything, we're going to have differences, is our attitude, how we handle the differences. If we see the differences as an opportunity to learn something about ourselves and our partner without putting them down, because if you're my partner and I want to go into a hot tub at a party and you don't want to, and I make you wrong for that and call you prudish or uptight or, you know, whatever, we're probably going to get into a fight and we're not going to learn anything. But there may be some important things to learn about why I want to do this, why you may be reluctant, and we need to talk about those things to understand ourselves better.
We can use that as a way to learn more about each other.
Exactly.
Thank you, Jordan. This has been extremely helpful.
Thank you.
When we come back, we'll meet a behavioral scientist and adult educator who sometimes uses nudity as a tool to build self-esteem. If you wish to write us regarding our program, address your letters to Human Sexuality, Box A, 5300 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, North Hollywood, California, 91607. You are your body. How you feel about your body is how you feel about yourself. Those words were written by my guest, Emily Coleman, in her book, Body Liberation. Thank you for joining me, Emily. I'm curious. We've been talking a lot today about becoming comfortable with one's body. How can we go about that?
Well, there's certainly two good ways. One is by touching your body and really learning to love touching your body. And the other one, as we spoke about earlier in the program, about the nudity, which is important so that you learn to look at your body, but you learn to look at it and look for what you like about it, rather than the way most people look at their bodies. If you look in the mirror, you see what you don't like, whether it's just your face that you're looking at and seeing what you don't like, or whether it's some part of your body.
We tend to always point out the defects rather than the good things.
That's what we notice. So, but knowing that, then we can really consciously do things to help us love our bodies and show our bodies love.
Well, you mentioned touch. Most of us were told not to touch as children, not to touch any parts of our body.
Right.
How can we go about reestablishing that contact?
Well, one way is simply that when you do touch your body, and you know we touch at least our faces or our bodies. Women put makeup on, and usually they have this feeling about when putting makeup on, I'm going to try to make myself beautiful. You know, I'm ugly now, I'm going to try to make myself beautiful.
Repair the damage.
Exactly. And a man will shave, you know, the same kind of thing. Putting on body lotion. Many times they put on, now hurry up and be beautiful, you know, instead of, hey, you know, you're nice. And you deserve this nourishment, which is a whole different way of touching yourself. Now, we have to really practice doing this because it just doesn't come natural. And
I think people almost feel foolish touching themselves.
Absolutely.
We're so used to not doing it.
And we were all brought up to not be conceited, so that we're taught, oh, you have this that's bad with you, but nobody tells you what's good. It's taken me years and years of therapy, of going to nude things, of really working on my mind to realize, hey, you know, I'm 65 years old. I'm 15 pounds overweight, got cellulite on my hips, and got a fat stomach, and yet, in my own way, I'm beautiful.
How can we go about making each other more aware of their beauty?
Oh, that's a fun thing to do. We can do it by ourselves, and we can do it with other people. One way...
I could compliment myself?
Well, you can, but it's even better if you have a partner that you like very, very much, for the two of you to stand in front of a mirror, and without any clothes on. And you first start off by looking in the mirror and looking at each other's bodies, seeing what you like about each other's bodies, really being specific, you know, looking at this part and that part and the other part, particularly the parts associated with sex.
You can actually stand there and say, gee, I love your hair, or I like your mouth.
Do that, but first of all, look. And then the next thing is to take turns giving each other compliments. You've got to talk this over at a time, you know.
Doesn't happen.
And you take turns giving each other compliments, saying, you know, and as you give the compliment, you do something else. You touch a person's body. So you say, you know, I really like your hairy chest. And you reach over and you touch a person's hairy chest. Or, and you turn around and look at all sides of you when you look in the mirror and you say, you know, I really like the dimples in your bottom. And you pat their bottom a little bit. And you go throughout their whole body like that. Most of us have not received body compliments. Once in a while we do during the sex act, but that is different. It's like somebody's trying to turn you on. This way, a real genuine body compliment is a joy. And most of the people don't know what's good about their body. They know what's bad about it.
Well, particularly I think about the parts of the body that we consider sexual, like breasts, genitals.
And pubic hair.
No one ever compliments
Nobody ever
pubic hair.
Exactly, exactly. And yet everybody is unique, and they have their own amount and distribution. And it's really, a number of people have very fun or provocative or attractive looking pubic hair, but whoever compliments you on that.
How about other parts of the body that we aren't used to getting compliments? Can you think of any others?
Oh, yeah, you can even go, to your face. Ears. That's a part of your body too, but when do you compliment a person on their ears? On their feet. Some people have very aesthetic looking feet or very attractive looking feet. And so, those parts are important. Belly buttons. Whoever compliments anybody on their belly button. And the roundness of a person's stomach. Most of the time, if people have round stomachs, they're very much ashamed of them.
Oh, yes, hold it in.
But many times other people will say, hey, I really like that. I think it's nice to touch, it's soft, or it's sexy looking, or it's just round and aesthetic.
In other words, look for the positives, not always for the negatives.
Exactly.
There's no reason to put ourselves up against a Playboy, quote, image of what should be.
That's right.
We're perfect as we are.
Exactly. And, if a person will touch their own body, there's a little an activity where you close your eyes and you start with your hair. Anybody can start it right this minute. You start touching your hair with your eyes closed and feeling the texture and the softness of your own hair.
Just stroke yourself.
Yeah, and then you come down and you can feel your face, and as you feel your face, get in touch with what parts do you like and how do you feel about those parts, and come down, and even like for women to feel their own breasts. Most of the time they have not felt their own breasts.
Wait for somebody
to
else.
feel that, that's how that feels like. Feel your waist, and even feeling your stomach fat, to really to do that.
Emily, you have given us a lot to do when we leave this show today. I want to go home and start practicing some of these things.
Right.
Really, they're wonderful suggestions. Learning to appreciate your body is appropriate at any age, and it can certainly help you enjoy your sexuality.